Hello and welcome. My name is Dr. Mohsin Malik. I run the Research for Real YouTube channel and a podcast. I've been asked to share my experience with the endogeneity test that I implemented for one of my recent survey research. So here am I, just talking briefly in very easy to understand three simple steps how to implement endogeneity test through an SPSS add-on. Let's go straight into action. Three steps. First step is we need to understand the basics or the conceptual information necessary to implement the endogeneity test. Endogeneity test simply refers to measurement error that when we run the statistics analysis, the independent variable relates to the regression error term, resulting in overestimation. That, in essence, endogeneity is. There are three principal causes of endogeneity. One is omitted variable bias. We didn't include the relevant independent variable in our analysis. In many cases, which you see on the screen, there could be issues of potential simultaneity or reverse causality, which was the issue with us when we were doing this paper. Our co-authors were very wanted to check that if the x that we use or antecedent variable that we use that might be actually a mediator. So despite the theoretical justification we had, so we had to perform this test. And the third one is the measurement error. So essentially, in order to address these endogeneity concerns, what we have to do is there's a popular approach what we call as instrumental variable, implemented through a two-stage least scale regression, 2SLS we call it. And the key thing here is the selection of that instrumental variable. So that instrumental variable is not part of our model. We should have collected additional variable as part of our data collection, and that the instrument variable should fulfill two conditions, what we call as relevance and exogenous condition. Relevance means simply that the independent variable should be theoretically connected to x, not statistically, theoretically connected to x. And the exogenous condition says that the instrument variable be selected in a way that it should only be linked to y through x. There should not be theoretically a direct relationship between instrument variable and the y. So these are the two important conceptual understanding we need to have when we select an instrument variable: relevancy condition and the exogenous. Briefly, step one, brief background. Further readings you would have seen in the front slide, Hill 2021. You can refer to that one for further details. The second one is my paper, Malik et al. 2025. Second step, I apply this two-stage least scale endogeneity test to my model. What you could see here, this was published last year. We had this digital orientation on the left, which was our independent variable. Then we had two mediators, information governance and digital transformation. My co-authors, as I mentioned to you, they were not sure, despite the theoretical support. So they were thinking that maybe information governance should come before digital orientation. So what we did was, in order to rule out this simultaneity or reverse causality, we did this endogeneity test. What we did was we chose psychological safety because we had plenty of literature support for it to be theoretically relevant to digital orientation. I've just mentioned some of the reasoning here. You can go and read in the exact reasoning in my paper. And psychological safety could only affect information governance and digital transformation through digital orientation. So it also fulfills the exogenous condition. So psychological safety, instrument variable, only theoretically relevant to digital orientation directly and indirectly through digital orientation to information governance and digital transformation. So that was our application. Next, what I do is I go and implement that. This is our step 3, easy step. We run it in a SPSS add-on. I will just do it and show you what are the results and how do we interpret that. So what you go here, it's an SPSS. Those who have used the software would know. If you go to regression, This is an add-on that you can install, very similar to Hayes Process Macro, endorsed by Ahmed Daryanto. The supporting paper for that is also mentioned in the slides there, and I'll put that on the YouTube description as well. So you click on this one. Pretty simple here. The depend variable. So we have to run two separate tests in my particular case, because there were two options, that Y1, which was information governance, and Y2, which was digital transformation. Both could be potentially the X, not the mediators. So that was the reverse causality that we were testing. It's also the instrumental variable test, and this two-stage least-square test is also applicable for OMV, this omitted variable test, and also the common method variance checking for that one. So we've got information governance as the dependent variable. Then what we have done is because we used the size, hospital size in this case, or the organization size in this case, as a covariant or control variable. So what we do is we use that as both independent variable and instrument, and then we have just an instrument variable called the psychological safety, and then independent variable digital orientation that you saw in the model. Now we have already put that. I could quickly go back just to reinforce, reset everything. I go back here. So information governance becomes the dependent variable, digital orientation becomes the independent variable, psychological safety becomes the instrument, where QP5, because it's a covariate or control variable, it goes both in there. There are different tests. You can have a test for weak instrument, strong, weak instrument. There are tests for that, and you can read about that. But at this moment, keeping it very simple, implementing the two-stage 2SLS through a Horstman specification test. So I just click this one. So that's enough for us. Continue, and then click OK. And now we've got the results here. Important thing that I want you to note here, there are different information, and that paper talks about all this. All I want to do is to note this joint F test for the significance of the residual variable and the null and alternate hypothesis. So this is the output that we've got. I'll take this output and go to my slides to explain it further. So this was, now yeah, that was a step 3. What you see here is that we have implemented that through a software, an SPSS, add-on, and DOS. And now we want to make sense of the output that we've got. As I mentioned to you, because we've got two mediators and we want to test the reverse causality for both of the mediators, what we do here is we first run it for information governance. Same procedure would be followed for the digital transformation. Let's talk about the result. So what this NDOS add-on does is it implements the Horst specification test for the 2SLS regression. What we have now is that there are two hypotheses. One is a null hypothesis. That means that instrument variables are exogenous. And the other one is that instrumented variable is endogenous. So if the p-value is less than 0.05, that means that we have to reject null hypothesis and our OLS is not efficient, and that means that there are endogeneity concerns. But in this case, you will be able to see the output that I showed you over there is a joint F test. F value is this one, but it is not significant. Because it is not significant, that means we do not reject the null hypothesis. That means that our OLS regression is efficient. This implies that endogeneity is not a major concern. So if you go back to my paper, I produced this output as F statistics of 2.10 at p-value greater than 0.05. So that means that X, the relationship that we put in our original model, X leads to information governance, digital orientation leads to information governance, is in fact efficient. The second one is about F statistics of 3.69, which is again not significant, so we do not reject the null hypothesis. So in essence, our instrument variable tells us that there are no endogeneity concerns as such, major endogeneity concerns to report for our study, and we are good to go. So this is in a nutshell. Again, there are more to it. This is not the only way to do a Hausman specification test and a 2SLS regression. There are other ways as well. Then there are some limitations as well. All the details could be referred to the three papers that I cited earlier. Number one is Conceptual Background in Hill 2021, how to implement and read this one. For this particular example, you can go to my paper, Malik et al. 2025, and what is the Endos SPSS add-on, how does it work? You can go and read that Daryanto 2020. Thank you very much. Hope this helps.